We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
You have to let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind.
I just want to make an impact, a positive impact on as many people as possible.
You gotta want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe.
When you're down, you might feel like you want to give up. Don't stop. Keep moving. Keep breathing.
There's a war on consciousness in our society.
There is an awakeness, an awareness that sees it all. And it's in you too. It's in all of us.
We have to stop consuming our culture. We have to create culture.
This is the G and Coletti Show.
Let's begin.
On this episode of the G and Coletti Show, we interview Strongman and YouTube superstar Elliott Hulse. He has become one of the most recognizable people on YouTube, especially in the realm of health and fitness. But Elliott is not the guy to be pigeonholed as a stereotypical meathead. One of his most famous lines are that the body is the mind, and he has tons of videos explaining the mind and body connection. From a life of making up to 30 videos a week and putting out a ton of content, he just disappeared out of nowhere like a ghost, without warning or reason. After almost a year hiatus, he's returned with a fresh perspective on life and even more knowledge to share.
I think we can both relate to Elliott Hulse in this perspective. You know, I've done a lot of soul searching myself, and I know you've gone through your own times of despair and searching, trying to find yourself. And I think it's really amazing that he's coming back from this hiatus and sharing his experiences and putting himself out there. You know, some of his followers think he went cuckoo and nuts, and others probably see him as an awakened or maybe even enlightened individual. But more than that, I personally love the idea that the stars of the future, they don't need to go through Hollywood, but rather they can build a grassroots following online and just be straight up and real with their followers, like what Elliott Hulse is doing.
Now, after my accident, I turned to the internet for answers. Yeah, that's right. The internet can be used for answers and not just to kill time. And while on this journey, I came across Elliott Hulse, and I was looking for workout routines to help me with my recovery and people that had more open and conscious views, and I was surprised, very surprised, to find both in one person. Elliott had deep insights into human behavior, and his videos answered questions from building self-confidence to why you should quit your job. He talks a lot about intuition and finding the answers to your questions in your gut instead of your mind. This really resonated with me, as the doctors told me that I basically had 1 year to heal, and whatever progress I made by the 1 year mark is where I would be, more or less, for the rest of my life. This meant that I had to make some risky decisions, and I could not afford not to be right. I had to listen to my gut rather than my logic and reasoning, and in retrospect, it was a good move. I was incredibly excited to interview Elliott after all I've been through, and I was really interested to get his insights and what he could teach me, and he did not disappoint.
You climb the ladder, and as you get to the top of the ladder, you begin to recognize that it's on the wrong wall. When you're hit with the calamity, when you're hit with the depression, when you're hit with the 7 bullets that take you down, it is basically God or the universe saying, you're on the wrong wall, bro. I know you've been crushing it. I know you've been doing hard work. I know whatever it is. I mean, I know you and I were in different businesses, but the sentiment was the same. I'm doing the best that I can. I have a family. I'm doing everything that I can to take care of my family. I'm a warrior. I'm hardworking. People like the work that I'm doing. You know, my customers are being treated well. But when all that is done and it isn't in alignment with yourself, your integrity, your trueness. It doesn't matter if it's good. It doesn't matter if you're following all the rules. It doesn't matter what the result is, because ultimately you're on the wrong ladder. You're in the wrong wall, and you're going to be knocked down. It is inevitable. See, you got it. You got a pretty big wake-up call, right? It was basically like, you can't not know this now. It's like you have to do something different. That's great. When shit like that happens, especially since you're here to do the work that you're doing now afterwards, I say congratulations, bro. Congratulations for that disaster, because it sets you back into alignment with your truth, so that you could set down the work you were doing and pick up what you were supposed to be doing. So for me, it's a little different in that I was doing good work, but it wasn't the right work, and it wasn't being done in the right way. So when I got a sense that I need to stop, it was my body talking. It was my intuition and my heart saying something ain't right. I didn't take the bullets, but I took a few hits, and I had to sit down and say, whoa, wait a second. Is this true? Where I'm going? Is this right? and I've needed to create space. You got the space in the hospital bed. I got the space in this office that I had to remove myself out of my gym, and in order to take time to meditate, in order to come back into accordance and alignment with my truth.
So for this interview, I probably did a little too much talking than I should have. This is one of the people that I looked to while I was healing, and I couldn't resist the opportunity to ask him questions about things that I learned from him and things that I wanted to get his interpretation that I was doing on now.
I'm sure that the things you want to learn, most people will find very useful for themselves as well. So, I don't want to be so hard on yourself.
Well, absolutely. That's what guided this last little clip. And what I told him was that, I always wanted to make money my entire life since I was the youngest entrepreneur in history. I think I was like 6 years old, and I just always thought that I wanted to make money. And then once I had the opportunity where, let's say I was about to cross that financial goal, that particular number that I thought would mean that I made it.
What is that number? Where did you set your number at?
In all honesty, the actual cash number was $1 million.
Million cash.
It was $1 million.
Under your mattress.
It was $1 million. For the record, I don't have any of that, but that's how the story went. It's funny, but also the opportunity to make like maybe more than $1 million a year, like that also income.
Yeah.
I wanted that type of stability.
And I think that million numbers is almost like etched in many people. The millionaire. Who wants to be a millionaire? Everything's about this millionaire lifestyle. All you hear about is that $1 million number, which nowadays houses, you can't get a house in Woodbridge for $1 million.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you. Blame it on the media, not me. I don't feel so bad. I was just the victim, and I was being brainwashed. But I told him that, and I was like, I always thought that that's what I wanted. And once I hit that milestone in life, or I got close to it, I actually never hit it.
And your whole time, did you ever ask yourself why you wanted $1 million? Was there ever like, okay, once I get it, why? What am I going to do with it?
Well, the odd thing in that is, everybody wants money because of what money can buy. But as I was making money, I didn't buy anything. I've never been really materialistic. I've always been somewhat simple. So I told him about that, and he said that it was the work that was the issue. It wasn't the money. It was how I was making it. I would have been more content if I made it in something that I felt fulfilling, like a charity I was involved in, or something where I was helping people. But to kind of be in the shadows, let's say, and do something that you have to keep a secret, it was more about how I made the money than how much money I actually made.
Well, yeah, and before I started working with CE, I felt the same way. I was fairly successful, but I just felt totally unfulfilled, and I felt like I needed to do something different, something more. And I felt that pull to change. Did you feel any pull when you did you know you felt unfulfilled, or just your accident sort of just ripped you right out of?
Oh no, it happened months before the accident. As I knew I was getting closer and closer to this milestone, I kept really questioning things to say like Jesus Christ, I thought I was getting close to it, and I don't feel any different. I feel worse actually.
So what does it feel like if someone is unsure right now listening? What unfulfillment feels like? Can you explain it to them? Do you know? Maybe people are saying, "Wait a minute, maybe I feel unfulfilled too. Maybe I should make a change."
Just gray, very gloomy.
Empty.
Yeah, gloomy. It was like there was no inspiration. I wasn't excited at all. I was walking through the motions. There'd be like small victories. There's times where you're happy, like say I just made a deal and I made some money, but it was very short lived. I'm telling you, by the time I got back home, it totally wore off. I'm there by myself with a bag full of money and wondering what the hell I'm doing with my life, and am I the bad guy in this world?
So you used to feel unfulfilled driving in Lamborghinis, and now you feel like, no pun intended, but a pig in shit when you're editing podcasts through the wee hours of the night, which is not fun work, but you're doing good work, right? Not necessarily fun.
If I feel like I'm helping someone, I'm contributing to society, yeah, absolutely, I feel good.
And I think overall, the system that we live in sets people up to feel unfulfilled because they choose their career solely based on how much money. When you start looking at what you want to get into in high school, the courses you're going to take, or in university, you're thinking about the job you're going to get. And what do most people base that on is how much money these type of people make. How much money do doctors and lawyers make? How much money do accountants make? Okay, I can't be an accountant. I don't have the marks for accountant, doctor, lawyer. What's the next echelon? Is it an insurance salesman? And people start basing it on that, where it should be. What do I enjoy doing the most?
Exactly. I don't see why someone's skill set can predefine their future. Just because you're good at math doesn't mean you should be an accountant.
But because they're good at math, they think, okay, what can I make the most money on, with this math skill?
Exactly. Sad but true.
We come here and we get the challenges that our souls asked for in order for our own progression. All these experiences that we chalk up as negative or bad or we get down about is purely judgment, and it's human ego judgment. The fact is that that's what you wanted. That way you can have the experience of catabasis, being struck down, and then so that you could rise again. I mean, what better human adventure than to burn up and then rise again like a phoenix.
You know, the story of the phoenix is something I really resonate with. I actually have a tattoo on my left arm of the phoenix rising from the ashes. You know, it signifies or symbolizes rebirth and, you know, just regrowing. So yeah, you do get knocked down and you can come back up. You know, you share a similar story as well when you went down and, you know, you're forced to come back and change everything in your life.
When he told me this, it kind of freaked me out because even before my accident, I would watch YouTube videos of people that got hurt and came back against these impossible odds. And I remember thinking to myself, that's something to be. I'd like to be someone like that, someone that could inspire people, someone that could face these impossible odds. And I think you see this even in sports and movies. Everybody loves a comeback. We all root for the underdog. And we actually measure ourselves by the adversity that we're able to overcome in business, personal life, sports, you name it.
So I think he said that we innately want problems in our life. Was that something he said?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's exactly problems. I think more a better word might be challenges, because what's the opposite to that? You have a very smooth and uneventful life. I was thinking about this the other day. So let's just say you were able to get whatever you want. And Alan Watts talks about this as well. You can have as many, you know, most guys would want beautiful women. So once you have all the beautiful women and all the cars, and your life would just start feeling very unfulfilled. You'd have all these things and nothing to do with it. You know, so
well, yeah, I think everything's relative. So if you had a life that was like that day in, day out, after a while it would become bland,
boring and bland. Yeah, and that's why challenges are something that can actually, you know, keep us in check and keep us moving and creative, and, you know, making life exciting and interesting and not just easy and, you know, whatever.
Exactly. I think what you're referring to is the duality of life. You need the sour to make the sweet taste sweet.
Love that saying, eh?
Love it.
Robert Bly would call it ashes. But basically, we want that humiliation and that place of humility to proceed from. This is why we do things like, so I played football, right? And in high school, one of the first things that you do is when you're going to be on the varsity team is like a rites of passage, right? In fact, you know, this is very primordial stuff. I mean, from our ancestors, from the practices of the traditional societies. We've always given boys humility at a certain age to then introduce them into what it is to be whole. So you would turn about 14, 15 years old, you're starting to feel your bravado, you start getting inflated, and the older men in the society just understood that, well, it's time to take him down a little bit. You got to be brought down just a notch so that your strength, which is all the bravado coming up in you, all the aggression coming up in you, can be placed in its appropriate place. You see? So I use football as the example, but, you know, that's just one form of initiation that we either choose to engage in or we draw to us. Your 7 bullets was your initiation. It was your rites of passage to be a worthwhile contribution to society. Our elders don't give that to us anymore, so we go looking for it. We look for it in sports, we look for it in military, we look for it in women, we look for it in selling drugs, and then finding out I'm just way too inflated, and I need to be knocked down. When you saw those people go through that evolution, you were also admiring the fact that they got knocked down, that they were in the dirt. There's something we desire about that, being knocked down in the dirt. Because innately we know that that's where we can then grow again.
This is really interesting that in ancient societies, the elders would humble the young men when their bravado is going out of whack. And judging by today's society, I think a lot of young men could use this, and maybe you and I could.
I was about to say, I was like, oh, you could have really used the humbling a few
back. Well, the funny thing is,
still setting up if you know.
No, I think I'm humbled. I'm 100% humbled, but I probably could have used that in my earlier years when you're
look at
you're a young
brothers.
man and you have hormones and
Yeah,
you're thinking and you just want to either fight or who knows what you're trying to be tough. But in these day and age, especially, you're not allowed to hit your kids.
Sometimes it's hard to see when you're going through yourself, like you feel like you're a know-it-all. Like, sometimes my little brother, I feel like, needs a humbling. I would never do that to him, but he's a good kid overall. But sometimes, just thinks you're a kid.
Well, he's like his big brother, right? Do you think you could have used a humbling, or?
Absolutely, yeah. I've been humbled many times in many different ways.
Yeah.
Now that I look back.
Now thinking about it, though, I think there's more value if it happens in your early fundamental years. So you get humbled instead of when you're 33 years old. Because
is it
by
necessary though? Do you think everyone needs a humbling? Do you think it's something that everyone needs? Because I know, like, we talked the last points about getting knocked down and coming back up. So, like, does everyone need a humbling?
I think the amount of humbling that or the magnitude or of the event is dependent upon the person. There's some people that
so it's going to be a humbling scale.
Absolutely. There's some people that you're a 10 out of 10. You need something devastating.
Humbling.
You know, I think I was pretty high on that list, and maybe I didn't get humbled at 15.
We'll have to come up with an app to rate your humbling, and then we'll send a humbler in, and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Just for the betterment of society, especially with where we're going.
I mean, the whole thing is to be spontaneous. The whole thing is to get out of your head, right? If you're living a very patterned life, very angular patterned life like most of us do, we get stuck. We get physically stuck and mentally stuck. So as your body becomes rigid and your mind becomes rigid, you know, we go to school and we get rigidified. Then we go into a very rigid world. Even though you were an entrepreneur per se, you still had a schedule. You still had a daily routine. You still had to be accountable to various boundaries. When we can allow our body to be free of those boundaries and we can be spontaneous in our own flesh, we access a form of intelligence that gets stifled by our very suppressed angular lives. Do you understand what I'm saying? A lot of forms of dance and art are designed to allow you to be completely spontaneous in the movement. So people who do, draw mandalas or paint, this is allowing them to express themselves in a nonlinear way. When you're talking about the moving around, the bouncing, the vibrating, the verbal stuff, the sounds that's associated with some of the exercises I've taught, that's allowing yourself to move in a nonlinear way. You almost go into a trance. You can allow yourself to go into a trance through pattern interrupt, because the ego is so attached to its rigid ideology and its rigid ways and its angularness. When you throw it off with something that kind of that causes you to have to react or respond spontaneously, you really wake up your mind and body.
So we had a chance to try this bioenergetic breathing at the CE office. We have a meeting every Wednesday, and there's always some type of meditation. We all take turns bringing our own type of meditation, anything crazy. And we tried this, and we had to jump around in moving in sporadic, uncalculated, unrhythmic ways, which is totally odd. So you can't be like, it's not like you're dancing. You have to, if you jump a couple times in a row, you can't jump on the third. You just move in a way that is totally spontaneous. And this is supposed to increase creativity and spontaneity. And I don't know if it did that. We only did it the one time, but everybody couldn't stop laughing. For sure, it increased like the morale, that everybody was joking around. It had a really good vibe afterwards.
And I think more than anything, like, routine is important in life, but you always have to add things into your routine that will break you off of the angular pattern, like Elliott puts it. I think he talked a lot about that. Is just try and change it up a bit, do something different, go out of your comfort zone. Like Tony Robbins once at one of his big talks, there's a girl talking about this problems, this cycle she's been in. He grabbed a glass of water and poured it on her head, just stopped her cold in her tracks, broke her out of that cycle.
Okay, I think I told you that story.
Yeah, you did actually. Yeah.
People think this is crazy because especially if you see videos of Elliott doing this online, it's absolutely nuts. Like there's times where he's kicking and screaming like a 2-year-old in a temper tantrum.
We'll send some links in our email.
Yeah, it's crazy, but at the same time, listen, when you meditate, what do? You control your body, you control your breathing, and your mind calms down. So would it be insane to suppose that your mind follows suit of your body? So if you jump around spontaneously in a creative, unpatterned way, wouldn't that leach into your brain and your psyche and your imagination? Is that crazy?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Makes sense.
He also mentions that, when we're children, we go through, society's traps with parents, teachers, the media. Everybody's telling us what to do, to shut
Sit down, don't move.
Exactly. So you got to think
attention.
and you become, you develop fear and you start to move in a certain way. I know I've become extremely rigid. I've been like that since I was a kid.
And I believe that the school system, this is a whole different topic, which we'll probably have another podcast on, but it's flawed. It's very flawed. And there's a video we just shared on our YouTube, on the Collective Evolution Facebook about in Finland, how they're changing that. Their school's going down to like 3 hours a day, letting kids play more and do the things they want to do and have more of a fluid, less rigid sort of school experience. And overall, they're one of the top ranked school systems in the world.
Well, you're a perfect example of what's happening is where happiness is found. Because you're right. When you're knocked down and you could rise up the way you've risen up, it's because you weren't doing what your soul wanted you to do. You weren't doing what was really making you happy. You were told money makes you happy, so your ego believed it. But your soul knew better, and that's why you got knocked down to rise up again, and you took it like a champ, meaning that you've allowed what was happening to bring you the happiness. Instead of resisting it, you grew out of it. So my point is that if you're caught up in the ego's identification of what's going to make you happy, don't worry. Don't worry. You will be taught very quickly what it is that you're not doing and what you should be doing. Right? Like I said, for me, it was a mood that came over me. You know, I don't want to say depressed, but I knew something was wrong. I could just feel it, and I had to stop. You took 7 bullets, but either way, that's where we had to go to find our happiness, and I'm grateful for it. We'll all have it. We'll all get it. Well, if you're not living the life that you're meant to live, you will be smacked down. And if you're not smacked down hard, you'll be smacked down with depression or anxiety. And you know what? You can take pills all you want, but then you're not really living. You're not really with what's happening, because what's happening isn't clouded by the medication.
Being with Collective Evolution, people obviously ask us a lot of times what their life purpose is, being that, you know, me and Giovanni changed our lives and we're doing, you know, something we love. And Ellie gets all the time, and people ask him, you know, what they should do, and he asks them, what makes you happy? And a lot of people disagree that you shouldn't do stuff that just makes you happy, that's kind of a self-centered way of living your life. And he mentioned that find where that charge is, find out what makes you happy, and then do that, because obviously that's your life purpose.
At the least, do more of that. You know, if you can't transition to stopping your job to go and, you know, maybe you like horses, to go and groom horses or ride horses, like, don't drop everything you're doing and go try and find a job getting horses. Make a slow transition. Start getting more involved with the things you do and break away from your job at the smallest sense. You know
exactly. And there's a few disclaimers. Obviously, if you're a young kid and you're in your teens, and I guess you're not really financially strapped,
exactly.
Find out what you love. As if money didn't exist, do that.
If you have
and then
3 kids, you know, let's put food on the table first, and then try and, you know, transition to your passion. That's what I would say.
And I'm sure some people would disagree with that. They would say, you know what, you can find a way. If you really love it, you can give up a couple hours of sleep. You can go back to school. Anything's possible. It all depends on what your why is and how much willpower and motivation you have towards achieving that goal.
What I would share with regard to psychedelics is that I put it this way when people ask me. I've done about 10 years worth of bioenergetics and dynamic meditation breathing work. Lots of nonlinear or rhythmic breathing work that has allowed me to go into altered states of consciousness and allow me to reintegrate immediately into society, bringing back the newly integrated, how you would say, shadow material, stuff that wasn't understood about myself, ways of being that weren't accessed. It was, in my opinion, an experience far more potent an experience than ayahuasca. It took me a longer time to get to where I am with it. In other words, like, bioenergetics and dynamic meditation could take years of unlayering. Is really what you're doing is you're stripping off layers. And the ayahuasca was like the same process, but done in 5 minutes and then went away. When it goes away, you're never the same. Same thing with the meditation. My advice for the most part is begin with the altered states of consciousness that are available to you with simple breathing. Because with the discipline and the know-how, you can get quite a bit done without having to, you know, it's very expensive, it's illegal, you know, like, I'm not saying not to do it, but like, not everybody has the opportunity to go to an ayahuasca journey, but you can. Everybody does have the opportunity to reach altered states of consciousness and to reintegrate split off parts of their consciousness with deep breathing, bioenergetics, and dynamic meditation.
Do you know what that is exactly? Like, I've never tried bioenergetics before.
Bioenergetics is what we talked about before, where you do that,
breathing,
the moving breathing techniques, and
are you in waking state? Like, or like when he talks about psychedelic experience, are you going to have like an actual psychedelic experience after you become an advanced bioenergetic practitioner or something like that?
I believe he said he experienced a lot of the revelations that come with, say, an ayahuasca experience. I don't think you're completely not tripping out or you're not hallucinating.
See, I hear a lot of people that talk about. So most people who don't or are afraid of ayahuasca think they can get there without it. They think they have. So I'd be very curious to speak again specifically about this with Elliott. But if he's saying you can get to a similar state, I believe it, obviously, where you have these revelations. But from my own experiences through any meditation or breathing, I've never got anywhere remotely close to some of the, I guess, visual experiences with ayahuasca.
What type of techniques have you tried to achieve that experience naturally?
Well, the Wim Hof method, where he talks about, getting to these similar ayahuasca stages, is almost like a hyperventilation. I've tried holotropic breath work. I did a session with that once where you hyperventilate. There was some music. It's dark. But again, I never had those deep experiences like I did in ayahuasca. Like ayahuasca, it's like it just grabs you, shakes you up.
In Elliott Hulse's defense, he said it would take a few years of doing that to get to that point.
That's what I'm saying. I've never experienced it. So I'd be curious to compare the two. Like, how similar are they? Is it a similar feeling, or is it like exactly similar 100%?
The name of your site is Collective Evolution, which is a beautiful idea, but really it begins with individual evolution. Right? So in other words, we're not going to grow together if individually we aren't growing. Right? And as individuals grow, you're by yourself. And it depends on what type of environment you're in, what kind of work you're in. But if you're committed to your own evolution, you're going to feel alone because there are those that aren't committed to evolving. You see, or their opinion of what your evolution, which is the silliest thing, you're going to give me your opinion about how I should be evolving. Well, that's wonderful, right? When you are firm in your conviction, you're happy, right? And you know your purpose, like the things we were talking about before. Your evolution is just inevitable, and it is your responsibility to just roll with it. And those who can't roll with you will just roll off. You see what I'm saying? It's not your job to make it collective. You can't force the collective. All you can do is work on yourself. Back to what we talked about before. If you're becoming a stronger version of yourself, then you will allow other people, but you can't force other people. Now, if the people in your family or the people that watch YouTube videos are not up to speed with the evolution, well, that's okay. They're going to proceed from their level of evolution. If their level of evolution creates judgment and hatred or whatever it is in their hearts, that's okay. But you got to realize they're at a lower level. I don't want to sound like it's a hierarchy, but look, if that's the type of behavior you're exhibiting towards someone who you at one point may have admired but now don't understand, then it says a lot about you. And I'm not interested in, if I have to convince you and I got to pull you up with me, that's way too much work. I'd much rather, like your website is called, be a part of what's happening, the collective. And when you're evolving, this is how it makes sense to me. You're going to collect the people that are evolving. So it's not like collective evolution means, hey guys, let's go all do it. It's like, no, I'm evolving and I collect to me those who are evolving also. You become a stronger magnet for those who are more in alignment with where you are and who you are. And the rest, let them chew up their gums. Let them say what they want. It's cool. God bless them. They'll probably figure it out eventually too. That's the funniest thing. When at first you show up with a low level of consciousness and then later wake up. I have people say that all the time to me, and not to say that they owe me anything, but they'll say, man, Elliott, when I first watched your video, I thought you were nuts. They've always thought I was nuts. I am nuts from the beginning. I thought you were crazy. But then all of a sudden one day I woke up, you said something and boom, they woke up. So now, and then they go back and they say, now I like everything you said. Well, it wasn't up to me to change your heart, but it was up to me to say the things that I had to say and be who I am. And if you stick around long enough, there's a good chance you might wake up.
So I think we both can relate to this. When you start, absolutely hate the word awakening. But when you start to feel different and you start to think about things differently, your perspective changes, and you open up to simple things from meditation to different diet.
I think it comes from the fact that you were sleeping previously, right? Like you were unaware. sleep. Anyways,
I think it sounds mysterious and mystical, like there's some
Mystified,
type
yeah,
of
it's
magic or
over-mystified,
something.
yeah.
All it is you just start thinking a little differently. That's all it is. We'll just
Consciousness
we'll call a
changes.
spade a spade.
You open up, yeah.
Exactly. So people start treating you a little different. You know, when you get excited, like you learned about some new meditation practice, you want to tell someone that you just bump into at the grocery store.
Well, for me, it was when I went vegetarian, because I couldn't really hide it. You know, like if you start thinking differently, you don't have to talk to people about it. But when you go vegetarian, for me, it was like you go to someone's house, you're not eating meat. You got to tell them why.
So do you remember the first time you told someone that? Or someone
absolutely.
close to you, and they're like, "Huh?"
They thought I was crazy. A lot of people, Italian background, not eating meat. But it's something that I think is a lot easier now to talk about, and it's people are embracing change a lot more. I don't know if it's the internet. I feel like just in the last couple of years, so many people are open. I'll see a Facebook post that I'll put that I 3 or 4 years ago got murdered for. Now it's like really balanced. There's people on both sides arguing it.
I had a similar experience. You know, people thought I was crazy at first, but then they look at me and say, like, you look different, you look happier, your eyes look clear, your energy is a little different. And they said, I want to feel different. They noticed, I noticed people were gaining weight, people were depressed, and people were drinking more. And I'd mention my hook is really meditation. I think meditation is really easy, and it's kind of somewhat acceptable, mainstream accepted.
Yeah, yoga, meditation, these are all sort of entry points, I think. And I think my best advice is don't be afraid of what other people are going to think. You'll attract the right people into your life. Just be who you are, speak your mind. And a lot of the time, the people might judge you at first, but they'll probably be really curious to ask you questions about your journey. That's what happened with me when I was just sharing all kinds of crazy stuff on Facebook. No one would comment, no one would like, but when I see people in public, like, oh my God, that post you said, what about this? They start being all curious. So they're listening, and they're curious.
Yeah, and like Elliott said, our name Collective Evolution. He said, we're not trying to collectively change anybody to evolve. We're just trying to collect people that seem to be on the same frequency as
and
you.
We welcome people with open minds.
Absolutely, and people that just. Yeah, it's just that simple. Just to be open-minded to new idea. It doesn't mean we have to agree with each other. Obviously, you're a vegetarian, and I follow the bulletproof paleo type diet. But it doesn't mean that we have to argue to the death. You can just I'll listen to your points, you listen to mine, and maybe we'll agree or agree to disagree. We probably more of the latter. But as long as the conversation is open for open dialogue.
And it's not judgmental. It's not angry. It's not, like who's right, who's wrong.
Exactly. Don't start slamming people on Facebook posts. That's bullshit. Just speak your mind and listen as well. I feel like I need to thank Elliott on behalf of myself and all the other people that are trying to grow and try new things. A lot of the time, experiencing growth takes people to a place that they may not feel comfortable and even feel embarrassed. Elliott oozes authenticity, and he's proud to be real, even if it means putting himself out there screaming and crying, all the while knowing that millions of people are going to see this. Would you do this? No, I know I wouldn't. I think we should support people that break down barriers and take risks to further human consciousness. And as the quote from T.S. Eliot goes, only those who risk going too far can possibly know how far one can go. Thanks so much for tuning in, and if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to our email list when you get a chance. We send out weekly emails with cutting-edge info that we curate from some of the most interesting people. We do all the heavy lifting, and we get you a concentrated dose of valuable info.